Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Rudolf or Rudy Falad. I'll be your moderator today. And with me, I have a Professor Chris Tucci, who is the lead faculty for this program. This is a pre-enrollment or information session, if you like, so that you find out more about this program to decide whether this is the right thing for you to take or not. And we'll start in a moment. But as always, if you can put that if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, just put that in a chat. Where are you connecting from? If you are watching us live, please tell us where you're connecting from. All right, let's see the first one. Anybody from London? All right, there you go. London, UK, London, London, London. All right, anybody outside of London? Yorkshire. All right, Manchester, Guildford, Cheltenham, Swansea. All right, anybody outside of the UK? All right, so Chris is in Saudi. Right. Jonah says Bristol, still UK. As if in doubt. Okay. All right, more from London.
Nice.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
very good turnout from the UK. I had someone from Geneva, Switzerland, Francis there.
all right. All right. London, more Essex. Oh, yeah. Geneva, Switzerland. Yes, you're right. You're right. Okay. All right. Well, great stuff. So, very diverse crowd, London and the rest of the UK, and then a couple of people from outside the UK as well. Very warm welcome to you, and we get going quickly. So, Chris Tucci is a professor of digital strategy and innovation at the Imperial College Business School. I'm going to be your moderator, working with Emeritus that works with Imperial to deliver this program to you. Now, what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk to you a little bit about what is the Imperial College, especially when we focus on executive education. We're going to talk about this program, the curriculum, what you will also experience on a day-to-day basis, like how does that feel if you haven't taken one of the courses from Imperial before? What are the key takeaways? What are the requirements? What do you need to do to get the certificate so you can showcase this on your CV or on LinkedIn? And also how to move forward from here, right? So application process. You can put any questions you have in the Q&A if you like. We can address them at a suitable point in time, or also we have plenty of time at the end as well. So not to worry, we will not just talk to you. We would like to hear from you what you want to know, what you want to know most. But first and foremost, let's talk about Imperial College. So you will see here, Imperial College Business School is part of Imperial College in London. If you are based in London, then you know it's around South Kensington, but this is a fully online program. So it doesn't really make a difference whether you are based close to campus or not. Everything will be done online at the same time. But you will have opportunities to network with one another, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that soon. So it is a top-ranked university, as you see, no doubt about that. But what is there to remember when you think about Imperial? And I would say it is three words: business, technology, and entrepreneurship. So it's business, technology, and entrepreneurship. So what we're going to talk about in this course, yes, it's related to AI, and it is about AI beyond generative AI, beyond GenAI. There is more to this, but it's also technology that it can be used to achieve tangible business outcomes and to do it in a creative way, like an entrepreneur would do, whether you work in a big company or not. So business, technology, and entrepreneurship. So, Chris, tell us about a little bit about yourself and also about your colleague who is part of this program.
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thanks for popping over to this webinar. So I'm Chris Tucci, and professor of digital strategy and innovation. I'm in Imperial College Business School. I'm also one of the co-directors of the university-wide artificial intelligence initiative called IX, which you can easily find online. And basically what that is, it's a co-location of researchers across all of Imperial who have an interest in AI or at least the ones who would like to be located in White City all together in one on 2 floors of a building there. And we were able to hire 20 new professors in the artificial intelligence domains covering 12 different departments. And then we've managed to also create postdocs in an additional 7 departments. So we have 19 different departments of Imperial all together thinking about artificial intelligence. Very exciting. And one of the people whom we were able to hire a couple years ago was Islam Rekik, and she's going to be the co-teacher in this program. And she's working in computer science or the Department of Computing and at IX. And so she's done a lot of stuff on medical imaging and research on AI in the health sector, in addition to working on affordable AI, predictive AI, machine learning, and so forth. Me personally, I work mainly on the topics of innovation management. And I think about how companies adopt AI and what they can do with it, or other technologies as well. But in this particular context, I'm thinking more of the artificial intelligence adoption and the AI strategy that companies can use. I worked on new business models, all kinds of IT innovations over the years. But I used to work in AI research back in the day, way, way back in the day, which I won't even say how long ago that was, but I actually worked in artificial intelligence research, and then I got more interested in how a company was investing in R&D, and that's what got me into this current career path that I've been on for the last, I don't want to say, long time. Anyway, thanks. Welcome to all of you, and we'll get into the details of the syllabus in a few minutes. Thanks.
Brilliant. So you're living proof that AI has been here longer than 2 years, right?
Definitely a little bit long, a little bit more, maybe 4 or 5 years.
There you go. So here's a program overview. I mean, everybody's been talking about AI. Here's my point here is that it's more than generative AI because the word AI has been coined at the Dartmouth conference in the 1950s. And we have gone through many ups and downs. We had AI winters and we had AI summers, perhaps, and hopefully now it's only AI summer going forward. And that's why you see here some data points from Accenture and World Economic Forum about the commitment to digital transformation, how AI is part of that. So I think there is no doubt in anybody's mind that AI is one of the top technologies to watch out for and to learn about. So what are you going to learn in this program, or how is it going to look like from day-to-day perspective? First of all, it's a 6-week program. It's fully online. It's 4 to 6 hours per week. There will be a mixture of asynchronous learning and live sessions. So what does that mean? The lectures are actually pre-recorded. You will see Chris there and his colleague, but you can watch them whenever it suits you because you are a busy professional. So some people do it before work, other people do it during lunch or after, over the weekend, doesn't matter. But the live sessions are there to complement this. So they are not lectures. We don't expect you to be there and stop everything else. Ideally, you are there and you can take advantage of it. But in any case, the live sessions will be recorded and you can refer to them. You will also have faculty sessions. You will have office hours. You can learn. You can have support from your learning facilitator regarding content and the program support regarding any technical or administrative issues. So there will be a huge army of people behind the screen or behind the scene to make sure that you have a great experience with this program. So once again, though, we think roughly it will take you 4 to 6 hours. It may be more, maybe less, depending on how deep you want to go. And key takeaways, maybe, Chris, what would be your key messages that you want people to remember?
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. So we want this to be a practical program. So we want you to think about like how you could use AI in your business. It's a little bit more some aspect of it is on your personal use of AI, and some aspect of it is on your organizational use of AI. So that's why we made these different takeaways here. So, being able to evaluate the principles of AI, and you can know where we are right now in the current state. So you can basically feel comfortable talking with somebody about AI. Um, then, thinking about the benefits and the pitfalls of AI for your business decisions. So how could you use AI, as I mentioned before, and what might be some of the plus and minuses of that? Then, thinking about the effectiveness of generative AI strategies, for example, recruitment, interviewing. We will have different application areas, which we'll show you, talk more about in a few minutes. Think about new opportunities for generating business ideas, and we will ask you to use genAI to come up with some new ideas, but of course you're free to come up with even more. Then, thinking about designing solutions, using tools for business scenarios. So this is quite oriented toward toward business. It doesn't have to be a for-profit business, by the way. This could also be equally applicable to a nonprofit, a non-governmental organization, or even a government operation, because you can always use AI for other things besides coming up with a new product, so a new service. You could also have a new government service, for example. Be able to understand ethical dilemmas, I feel like, is quite important. And what are some of the regulations that are addressing that? And, can you understand and carry on a conversation about those regulations and about the AI ethics in general? And then, think about new business strategies that take advantage of AI for your own organization's growth, competitive advantage, or just in general, your higher performance of your organization if it's not a for-profit company. And then, think about using creative thinking, experimentation. What's the role of experimentation? Why is it so important in coming up and commercializing or putting into practice new ideas? So, creating a culture of creativity and continuous improvement. How do we approach that, and what is the role of experimentation in that? So I would say those are the big picture takeaways. We'll come into more syllabus specific things later on. But if you just think stepping back from this is what you should, I feel, would be in your comfort zone at the end of this program.
All right, wonderful. So who is this program for? You see here, executive leader who wants to know more about AI, an innovation or strategy leader as well, a functional leader, a talent management professional, a partner at the consulting firm. So frankly, yes, it is very hard to say that if you are in business, you're in management, that AI will not be relevant for you. So these are some of the groups of people that we would expect in this program, but maybe anything else to add, Chris, from your side?
Yeah, just the question that we typically get asked is to what degree this is a technical course versus a non-technical course. This is not a technical course. This is going to be all pitched at the level of you do not need to know programming, and we have other offerings, where if someone really knows programming and really wants to do, work on AI implementation and so forth. We actually have other programs in these areas, but this is mainly for people to increase their comfort level with AI. And so all these different categories of people, the target audience for this is a much more general audience, someone who's in an organization and who wants to understand how AI could be used in that organization, as opposed to trying to work in the AI space specifically. This is more of a business orientation, I would say.
Absolutely. So these are some of the highlights of the program, right? I mentioned already learning facilitator and the office hours. This is what I do for many courses as well. There will be an immersive session, or there will be faculty sessions. There are case studies. There is a capstone project, and there are opportunities to learn from your peers as well. Typically, you will be surrounded by professionals like yourselves, and there is a discussion forum, and there will be group discussions as well during office hours, live sessions where you can share your examples. Of course, you can be mindful of confidentiality, but sharing is great because you can learn from others. We will also facilitate for you to connect, and you can connect outside of the course website, and you can find each other on LinkedIn if you like, and build something together if you like. So the highlights are really that you will do it on your own, but it's complemented with live sessions. You will have help and support, and you will have people around you to drive you further. You will have access to the course website for 1 year from the start. And some people may not care about certificate, but I would say if you spend so much time and effort, it is a good idea to look at the requirements, what you need to do to get the certificate, which is digital. It's ready for background checks. It's ready for sharing on LinkedIn. It is, generally very popular when people share that they finish the program on LinkedIn. And in general, we don't do grades, but we do more pass-fail. We use more pass-fail philosophy. But in any case, some work needs to be done, obviously, to get the certificate. So let's talk about curriculum a bit more. Chris, over to you.
Great. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll go through the different modules. And so you can get an idea about the topics that we're going to cover. So I'll give you a little bit more detail. Now, each one of these bullet points or whatever you want to call them is, you'd expect that we would have probably a video on it plus exercises on it. And the exercises are designed for maximal absorption of the material. Some of them are individual things. Some of them are things that your colleagues can see and make comments on and so forth. So, the first one is on sort of introduction, fundamentals of AI in business. So, what does it mean? What's the definition of AI? What are some of the different approaches to AI over the years? What is generative AI and how does it work? Just high-level view of how generative AI works. And then basically what we'll do is we'll go through lots of different applications, many, many examples of different ways that AI is being used and generative AI is also being used. So there'll be multiple parts to that. So how is AI being used in business? How is generative AI being used in business? What are some specific cases and examples to help you get a good feeling for how that works? Then we're going to move on to generative AI tools and prompt engineering. And this is very, very important because we want to be able to, first of all, identify how could you use generative AI? And then the next question is, given that you found something that you want to use, like you want to make images or you want to have some text generation or whatever, then how do you hone in? Because there's kind of a skill set that's being developed right now as to how to get a good answer from AI. So we have this whole module on prompt engineering. So it involves what are some of the tools, what are some of the techniques, then some different kinds of prompt engineering techniques. So we'll have multiple videos and so forth on this topic of how exactly do you craft a prompt to be able to get a good answer. And then what are some of the applications of prompting? We'll give a couple of examples of that, and we'll give, let's just say even 2 or even 3 examples of applications of prompt engineering. There's text, there's coding, images, there's lots of different ways of using videos. Generative AI, and we'll try and hone in on some of the techniques that you should use to be very, very specific to get the kind of output that you want. Then module 3 is about automating workflows. So this is a topic that has been requested by many people who were considering a program like this. And the idea here is that, you want to be able to use these tools. So you want to use them for creativity and for, brainstorming and for idea generation and, making ads and so forth. But you may also want to consider using these things for speeding up processes. So when we say speeding up a process, we're usually thinking of how you could automate something. So that's why we say the AI-driven workflow automation. So what are some of the strategies for implementing these workflows? What are some examples? And so we can go through, that's what we mentioned earlier, like could you use AI for interviewing potential job candidates to get some high scale so you don't have to go through, resumes one at a time, for example. So that's an idea like that could be applied to many other areas of a business. But if you think about your business process re-engineering, how could you automate some of those things using generative AI? Then we have the 4th module, which is more on what you're calling innovation and competitive advantage through generative AI. And so here, we're going to go through sort of the principles of innovation management and then tie that into the discussion of this new technology. So we'll discuss what's product innovation versus process innovation. What is competitive advantage? When we talk about competitive advantage, what does that actually mean? Is it something that's you come up with something new? Is that competitive advantage? No, that's not good enough. You have to commercialize it. You have to defend it. You have to see how much people will copy you, and so forth. So there's like a lot of principles involved in understanding competitive advantage. Then we'll talk about identifying opportunities. So imagine that you've come up with lots of good ideas. How important are these ideas? How addressable are these ideas? So we will talk about opportunity identification. Then we will go through examples of AI for new products and services, and then we'll give you some ideas for additional opportunity assessment for your own ideas. So think about it more like a helpful brainstorming with the context of coming up with something new and putting it into practice. Then moving on to module 5, we're going to go up maybe one more level to think about organizational impacts and strategic integration. So what does this mean? This means they're sort of putting together an innovation function, I would say, in an organization. So that means, one, you want to organize for AI innovation, and you also want to think about where does AI fit in your innovation process. Then, we have sort of the internal implementation issues, which are very, very important, right? I mean, people talk about new technology all the time. I love it. I'm very evangelistic and so forth. But, you come up with something new or you want to try to adopt something new and no one uses it in the end, that's not very useful in the end. It's not very lean. So we basically have to think a lot about convincing stakeholders. How are different jobs affected or changed by AI, and how can we think about that? Because we need to be able to address that really head on. And then we'll think about change management, like how do you apply, AI adoption in a change management process? So what are the different steps of a change management? How does it work? And how could you think about AI in that area? And then, what are some of the best practices for digital transformation in general, which basically is getting a project through and implemented and then put into practice. And then the last module, we're calling it ethical considerations and risk management in AI. So here, we're gonna touch on what we call social studies of technology. I feel like this is a very important topic. Most people minimize this because they're not used to thinking about it. And a lot of people might think that it's less relevant, but I feel like it's highly relevant, even if you come up with something interesting, even if you could convince all of your, stakeholders in your organization to adopt it. What are some of the unintended consequences of that? What are putting a system, an AI system into practice? What are some of the things you should be concerned about? So we will talk about technology and the politics of technology. And then we'll go through a kind of a list of ethical issues with AI. And we have to go well beyond the so-called trolley problem, like, a self-driving car. Should it kill the 80-year-old, who's crossing the street and not in the crosswalk, or should it kill the young kid? Those are kind of the typical scenarios that you hear about. But really, there's a lot more to ethics of AI than that. And actually, much more. That's probably one of the, well, I wouldn't say it's the least of our worries, but it's a less likely ethical issue than some of the other ones. We will talk about bias and algorithmic bias. And then we will touch on regulations. So what are some of the worst case scenarios that you could imagine for AI? And what are some of the regulations that are currently being proposed right now to prevent them or deal with them? And then finally, we're going to get into risk management. So what does risk management mean? How can we apply risk management, risk assessment, and risk mitigation to AI? And then finishing up with ethical technology design principles. So when you're designing a new system, like you're the leader of a project that has an AI component to it, what are some of the principles that incorporate ethics into this AI system that you might want to consider. So I think that's pretty much the whole syllabus. I hope that that's helpful and that you find that interesting.
Absolutely, and we already have some questions for you, Chris. So Yuri is asking, could you please name which applications and tools are we going to learn about? For example, ChatGPT, can you give us an example in which module?
Yes. So you do not have to use any one large language model. You can use whatever you like. So typically we'll say, you can get on ChatGPT if you like. We'll probably show you some examples. We will show you examples of the outputs of different large language models and how they differ. The thing about that is it's just to build some awareness that you should try these on different systems, that you don't want to get locked into one. They are constantly changing and they're actually improving. And even in the short time since we recorded those videos, many of these companies have actually bumped up their game in terms of the outputs of these prompts that you're going to give. So I would say we will show you the most common tools that you will use, but you be free and we will suggest and show you other ones that you can use as well. Okay.
Oh,
And that will
yeah.
be a lot. Actually, I should say, even before, just to finish that up, that will happen a lot in that second module, just to answer your question completely. And we will compare and contrast. After that, we'll probably just say, do use whatever system you want.
Yes. So Anonymous is also asking, is this course applicable also for small and mid-sized companies? For example, in small mid-sized companies, we cannot invest in large AI projects. We have to be very focused and pragmatic. So will there be also
Yes.
examples of smaller companies instead of Apple, Google, IBM, etc.?
Yes. I'm going to show lots of examples, especially in that first module, of small startup companies as well that come up with new AI products and services. Now, it's not necessarily the case that I mean, yes, not every company is going to do their own large language model. That costs, I believe the last estimate was on the order of 60 million pounds, let's just say, to train and develop an actual in-house model. The point of this is to try and think about how you could use it, even in an SME, to improve your processes. So can you be more efficient? Can you automate your workflow? Or can you come up with some new thing that incorporates an AI component that you could use, under license, that you would then turn around and offer to the public. So yes, I feel this is highly relevant to SMEs, and it should be useful for everybody in almost every kind of organization. We're not going to focus so much on Google's strategy or Apple's strategy, to be honest. We will show you the tools that are being developed by OpenAI, Meta, and so forth. But it's the tools themselves are sort of like Excel or like a spreadsheet that you would use. If you were learning about how to use a spreadsheet, you wouldn't necessarily talk about Microsoft. So that's the general principle.
Okay, great stuff. And Jingu is asking about, will we learn about AI agents?
Um, I, I think I have some small video on AI agents, but when we do, we're also having a live session. And in the live session right now, I have a lot more information on AI agents and why it's an important trend. So yes, I do believe, so we will cover it throughout this program. We will have some exposure to thinking about AI agents, what they are and why they might be useful and why it's such a big trend right now in AI.
All right, brilliant. And Claire is asking, I presume you will be covering the ethical issues with regards to climate change and energy resource
Yes.
uses of AI.
Yes, so basically what we have in this part that we developed on ethics is we have like kind of a laundry list of the different issues involved. And one of those is indeed there's a trade-off involved. One of those is the amount of energy that's being used in the data centers that are running the servers that produce the AI. Now, and that's something that we should think about. On the other side, people have said that using AI to help automate and run the data center itself actually saves a lot of energy. Now, I don't know if that's compensating enough for it. I doubt it. But on the other hand, it is something that it's worth considering. So it's not going to be like I have a whole video on climate change or something like that. I don't want to give you that impression. However, I think it is an important consideration that we have to address and consider when we are talking about some of the ethical issues and the implications of AI.
All right, and a few questions from Valerie. She's asking for an overview of tools and usage and pros and cons. Will there be included?
Yes, that's module two. That'll be module two. There will be the different tools. And as I mentioned, you will be able to, we have an assignment for you to use multiple LLMs and for you to compare the output. And we actually have some videos in there that show the outputs and how they come up with different answers and so forth. So yes.
And also, Valerie is asking if the course is adapted, from time to time to align with the focus of the students they may be interested in. Uh, it is, but the way we are doing this is that we have pre-recorded sessions which are fairly recent, and then we have live sessions, right? So in live sessions, you can raise any questions you want. You also have a learning facilitator. You can send them a question, and they will respond to you as well. So, but it's not like a
Yeah.
pre-registration, let's vote for this module or another one. However, we, of course, seek your input and your feedback on a weekly basis when the course is done, and we adapt
Yes.
it in live sessions as much as we can.
Yes, indeed. So people will also make requests for what they want to cover in a live session. Now, lately, people have been asking more about AI agents and so forth. But usually we can cover multiple topics in a live session too. So it's not like, so we have pre-recorded, I mean, obviously we pre-recorded these videos, so we can't easily modify the content. It is possible to modify the content, but not in any one, in any one given moment of time. And so we won't, so those topics are fixed, what I already went through there on this curriculum page. But we do have flexibility to take on new topics. And if sometimes people give me a little bit of notice, I can even do some extra research and come back and talk about some other things in a live session. So that's the level of flexibility that we have.
Great stuff. So Valerie is also asking, she's talking about working in a new business development. They are looking for new business opportunities based on AI, not directly
Yeah.
linked to the core business, but more at the edge of the core, with the idea
Yeah.
to generate some new sources of profit. Can this course help?
Yes. Um, I'd like to say that it would help. I can just tell you that my take on this, which we do discuss, which is that, that's what we mentioned when I mentioned about the experimentation or building a culture of creativity and experimentation. That's what it's for. It's not really about R&D management. You have a central R&D lab and you want to, do something in there and you want to come up with something new. It's really more for testing new ideas, getting them out there. And I feel like this is where there's a very good example for, you mentioned business development, is that you want to try and run some small experiments with some focused teams. And that's going to help you. And that's going to help you with with your business development area. So that would be my take on this, in some sense.
All right, we have a few more questions, but in the interest of time, we'll come back to those towards the end as well. Anything you can add to the capstone projects as a part of the program, Chris?
Oh, yes. So capstone projects. Basically, what we're doing is we're building the capstone block by block. So I mentioned that we had 6 modules. Each module will have its own little we called it a mini capstone assignment. So basically take that angle on it and then explore that in more detail and pull together a little portfolio. So basically by the end of the 6 modules, you actually have something that is, highly relevant to you, where you apply it to your own situation. And so this is why we say it's also designed around durable skills advantage, but we give you specific assignments. When people talk about durable skills, by the way, what they mean is what they used to call soft skills. But soft skills, the term has fallen out of favor, and I understand why. Because it's not soft, it's not like it's irrelevant, useless stuff, which I think that's why people made it more of a talking about durable. There's lots of different angles on that. So what we try to do is we try to pop those in and relate them to the different modules so that each module has its own series of exercises that you can do. And that's going to contribute to your so-called mini capstone for that module. And then you're going to accumulate those mini capstones. So I think it could be quite interesting for people in the end to have something that they find useful for their own situation and it's tangible thing that they could actually, refer to afterwards.
This is what will be the outcome of your hard work. If you choose to do all the assignments, the capstones, etc., you can get the certificate of completion. That certificate of completion is not just a PDF document, it's ready for verification, for background checks. As I mentioned, you can talk about it on your LinkedIn profile or your CV. You can, of course, bring it up during the interviews, etc. Now, I'm linking into a question from Anonymous asking, saying he's an IT contractor looking for a course that would give him ability to go into companies, discuss or leverage the in-context benefits of using AI. For example, going into companies who want to use the AI, but they don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think if your background's in IT already, give you the, I feel, this should help boost your confidence level to help facilitate other companies in developing their own stance toward AI, whether that be getting their employees to use AI more, or whether that more of a strategy thing, like what sort of new products, services, or business models could be available by exploiting AI. So that would be, that's my take. I feel like it should be fairly useful and should bring your comfort zone up to be able to have those conversations and to facilitate those discussions with your clients.
All right, great. So Eva's also asking, is this course effective for someone in a career break, exploring new career options? I won't be applying it to my business specifically, and I don't have a defined business to apply it yet.
Yes, I think that this could be quite useful, Ava. So obviously, we're not going to turn you into an AI, programmer. So that's not this. But in terms of giving you some ideas, for example, for a startup company that you could do, or to help you think about what kind of company you could go into and give them some, and add some insight into their own AI stance. I feel like this could be quite useful. For example, for an interview with a bigger company or to create a startup company in the space, then you'd be basically searching for co-founders or something like that. So I think this is be quite nice for someone on a career break because it at least will get you up to speed on the terminology and how it works. We will use generative AI to generate some new business ideas. And so it might be useful for someone who's not currently employed, but who might be interested in some aspect of startup or just joining a corporate venture or something like that.
All right, and Marco's asking, given the nature of subject matter, to what degree might the content be outdated by now?
Okay. Marco is thinking about the in what will be happening in a year's time. Um, in a year, I agree, there's going to be a lot of changes going on in the sector. So I'm not saying that this is going to be that this everything that we say in here is going to be highly, highly accurate in a year's time. However, most of the principles that we talk about in here are actually going to be very valuable and valid in a year's time. And I think you can probably follow things along by doing your own research after that to try and keep up with the technology edge. For example, I'm sure that we talk about video generation, for example. Now, right now, video generation is in its infancy, right? You could make a very, very good deep fake or a video. You can generate a video which lasts about up to 3 minutes long or something like that. Um, and, so that's already, if you think about what the implication is there, that's already long enough to affect advertising agencies. If you think about how that would be useful. Now, it's obviously not the case that it's going to affect a film company or something, a movie maker. However, who's to say in a year's time, maybe you'll be able to generate a whole film. I doubt it, but you never know. So this is the kind of thing that you'd have to think through. Okay, so who's vulnerable now based on the what I know to be the current um, progress in the sector. Second point is, when we talk about innovation management, we talk about change management, digital transformation, and so forth. Those principles are going to be the same in a year from now, even if the technology has advanced in 1 year. So I feel like if you set up your innovation portfolio, that's something you do no matter what, right? You talk about trying to convince stakeholders to adopt new technology, that's going to be the same whether or not your technology is more or less advanced. So I feel like, most of the stuff is going to be relevant. I think there will be some performance gaps in the technology. There will be better performing technologies in a year, but that doesn't mean that the most of the material and the vocabulary and the principles will be out of date in 1 year.
Good point. But as of now, it's as recent as it can get, right?
Definitely as recent as you can get. Of course, it took us a month or two to edit the videos, but we're doing our best here.
But it's new. It is new. All right. So Anonymous is asking, will the course help us understand more technical concepts like meaning of LLMs, neural networks, so we are equipped to work with more technical teams?
It's going to give you the overall intuition about this technology. Um, we're not going to talk about neural networks and how they work on weights or how they trigger signals to each other or anything like that. So it's really more of like, gee, how does a large language model work overall, big picture, trying to interpret your text, trying to figure out what you want, trying to make predictions on text. That's the level that we're at for this. So I don't know. I mean, I would feel like it's enough to manage a technical team and to have a conversation with the lead, but it's not enough to actually be like the day-to-day supervisor of a bunch of programmers in that sense.
Okay. All right. So how difficult do you anticipate the assignments will be for those who are beginners to AI? Lisa's asking.
Not difficult. I think that most of this is going to be about, as I just mentioned, about building your intuition. And then we're going to say, okay, write down 3 examples of, the kind of thing you could use this for. And then other people who are in the program together will say, oh, here's my three, here are my three. And then people can vote on each other's, suggestions or comment on each other's suggestions. So that's the level of the assignments. The assignments are, and then how would you use this in your own company? So that's you knowing your company. So I don't think that, it's going to be like there's not going to be any like technical quizzes or anything like that if that's what you're asking about. I think that it's going to give you the basics. We will give you additional supplemental readings if you want to go into a little bit more detail, but even the readings are pitched at a relatively high level, I would say.
All right, which is linked to another question from Claire about how to pass the course. I just answered this. I didn't mention that you need to pass all the assignments, all the required assignment to meet the requirements of completion, which means not 100%. Nobody needs to pass 100%, right? And there is no grade. There will be pass fail. What we're
No,
looking
it's a
for is
completion. It's a certificate
we're
of
looking for
completion.
an
Yeah.
effort and some originality and some effort that was put into this. But don't worry, you don't need to complete even every single assignment, just a portion of this, which is more than 50%. Anonymous is asking a question: what do you think is unique about your program versus other business education and AI courses from other universities, like from Oxford, Cambridge, or MIT?
Um, you have to do it's hard to make a blanket statement about all the different kinds of courses out there. Some of them are, even we have one that's like quite long and quite technical. We have one at Imperial with Emeritus, and we have another one. I have another one on digital transformation leadership, which is quite long, which does have some small overlap with the material here as it relates to AI. Um, so you'll have to you'll have to look at what is the, how much time do you want to spend? How long do you think this should be? What kind of certificate do they give? I've just given you some criteria to make your investigation. I don't think there's going to be any problem with finding a decent instructor at any of those places. So I think that you'll probably get somebody who knows about AI. So that's not the issue. But I can say that, we've worked in AI. I have worked in AI. I study AI business. Islam is working right now in the AI space. And so we have a certain level of intuition and expertise in this topic. And then, this particular one is relatively short one. It's relatively, open for introducing the concepts, and it gives you and it's very practical and market oriented. We solicited feedback from the market. And I can't really say about all the other programs in Imperial's portfolio or in MIT, Oxford's portfolio. But I think you can definitely find something that's right for you, depending on the level of complexity, the level, how long you want to do it, what's the technical training required, and so forth. This one is really the basics. This one is going to give you the basics and help you apply it in the business context. And that's where we're narrowed in on that particular angle, but may or may not be for everybody.
And coming back to what I talked about at the beginning about Imperial business, technology, and entrepreneurship, right? Every business school has slightly different focus, but here it's about fusion. And you can check out Chris's website as well on Imperial and see his research on these topics and his credentials. But you already hopefully got a feel for his charisma. So that's also another, selling point we actually hear a lot from the participants. But here's a tough question. This is not even $1 million question. This is $1 trillion question. And Chris, is there a prospective view on the future of AI and opportunities in 3 to 5 to 7 years? What will be the world tomorrow with AI fully exploited?
Okay. Actually, I can't say that we address this in detail in this program. However, in the section on ethics, um, I am asking you to go and review um, some of the issues on the future of AI, and including the Robot Brains podcast, which kind of gives a kind of a worst case scenario for how it could affect everybody's life and why we need regulation in case such a thing happens. It's the kind of thing that we would discuss in the live sessions as well. So I mean, I can't, I don't think we have enough time today to go through, all the different scenarios or possibilities. But I think that, you should have an opinion about this by the end of this program. And we will be able to reserve some time in the live sessions, perhaps if you're interested, to talk about some of this. We have done this in the past. And I could see that there's another question in there about how long this course has been running. And basically, we just started it. So this will be the second cohort, and it just started a couple weeks ago. So no, unfortunately, there aren't any reviews, but you can look on LinkedIn as people get their certificates. They usually tag me, and then they also write like what they liked about it and so forth. But that's not going to happen quite yet because I feel like they're probably still in the middle. In fact, I'm going to do a live session with them tomorrow, the very first cohort. So this will be the second cohort we're talking about today.
All right. Now, again, another kind of question from Eddie. Can you please tell us more about automating workflows module? We'll be using a specific platform such as Make to extract data from different softwares?
No. Um, uh, this is a higher level overview than that, which is more like on the principles. Like, what are the 10 principles um, of automating a workflow? What are the kinds of things you need to think of? Then you might be able to practice it yourself on trying some ideas. But these are at the idea generation stage as opposed to the implementation of an actual system, a working system. So I would say that angle on it is not really emphasized in this program.
Okay. All right. Understood. Now, Emma's asking, how much of the content will be relevant for someone working in the commercial area, such as sales, marketing, revenue?
Um, in as much as you can use these systems to generate um, marketing materials, to analyze sales leads, or to do things like that, I feel like it would be highly relevant. For you to um, have it as an input into the new product development process, or new process, new service development, new business models, I think that would also be useful. So basically, I think it will raise your comfort level in these areas, and it might be useful on a day-to-day basis as you think about how you could generate materials with it, or do some kind of quick analysis of text and so forth. I think that would be also helpful in that function.
Wonderful. Here is a question from Jingy. I talked about networking. She's asking, are there any networking or collaboration opportunities after this course? Yes. So you will be able to find out who are your peers. It's up to you to reach out to them. People typically share their LinkedIn profile, and you can then discuss with them any sort of ideas or business opportunities you have. You will also be able to learn about them and their experience through the discussion forums or live sessions as well.
Yeah, I think that's you'd be surprised, and if you go back and search for me again on LinkedIn and like look at some of the other certificates, there's quite a good interaction between the people in the cohort. And I felt that was actually kind of nice, to be honest, that you would be able to, so networking, we're not going to hold a cocktail hour or something like that. But on the other hand, from the online perspective, it's actually fairly good. I would say it's a good opportunity to work with some of the people in the sessions and in the cohort.
So we'll try to go through the remaining questions, but so we don't forget, here the number one question is what to do after this session. And if you are clear that this is something for you, you can just scan the QR code on the top, and it says apply online, or you have the link also in the chat. So you can go to apply online if you're already clear this is something for you. You will see the dates there. You will see a brochure for this. If you register for this webinar, you get the slides anyway. You get the recording as well. But if you're clear that this is something you want to do, you can just go for apply online and take it from there. If you want to have a one-on-one discussion to go through some of your questions again, or in addition, then you can scan the QR code, the second one below that, and you can also click on the link in the chat if you're joining us live, and you can schedule a call with an advisor very easily, and you will have a one-on-one discussion there. So two options. Either you go ahead or you have more questions if this is something of interest for you, and you would like to learn more. Maybe a couple of other questions. There are here, Anonymous is asking if the course will be beneficial to step on to the other AI courses. So I guess to continue with other AI courses after this.
Yes. I feel like it's pretty good. This is going to be a high level overview. So depending on where you want to go with it, if you want to do more on like how do I use AI in my job and have like a separate course on that, then you'll get more into the prompt engineering, more into the workflow automation, and so forth. So actually using the AI. This will give you some opening in all these different topics. Um, even like the change management, innovation management, those are all topics that are brought up in other ones. And then in terms of the overall usage of AI, or how does AI work, there are a plethora of courses that are going into more detail on this. That I think that once you know these general terms, you don't have to feel nervous about taking another class afterwards that expands on some of these things.
All right, and Valerie is asking what's the deadline for registration, if there is any flexibility. So if you are clear on this, you can click on the apply now. You will see the deadlines there. That's for the next cohort. But in case it doesn't suit you, then of course there will be very likely more and more rounds of this this year. So, but for now, the train leaves at the scheduled time. But in case you miss it, there will be another train. So don't worry about this one,
That's
right?
right. It's more like the
Uh,
underground. More like the underground, I would say, than
All right.
in the
So it
Eurostar.
depends on the country. In some countries, every 3 minutes. In other countries, every 2 days. So it depends, right? So this one will be most likely offered in during the year again. So also there were questions about business innovation, whether you will be able to put together an implementation plan after this. Any comments on that?
The idea is to actually help you think through an implementation plan. It's we're not going to go into so much detail that it's going to walk you through step by step, and but it should give you the general outline of an implementation plan and how you should make a plan for it. Like how do dealing with other stakeholders, convincing internal and external stakeholders and partners, employees, how do you address employees and so forth. So we will touch on those topics. And but on the other hand, I don't think it's going to be quite to that level of detail where the output is your detailed implementation. It'll get you started on it. That's for sure.
Brilliant. And Jingy is asking about more advanced course. I think you know which one it is, right? So Chris, maybe if you tell us the name of that more technical course on AI that you
Okay,
enjoy.
yeah. I mean, the other two that I'm involved in, you can look around for other ones as well. But the other two that are longer, one of them is more technical, called Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. And then the one that's more business oriented is called Digital Transformation Leadership. And so you can just search online. If you even say Tucci Digital Transformation Leadership, Imperial, Emeritus, you'll find it instantly. Those would be the longer, more detailed versions of some of this topic. This is really oriented toward the AI element, narrowly toward the AI element. And it goes into a little bit more detail than those other ones on the AI part, but less detail on all the other stuff.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for your insights, and thank you everyone for great questions. Always a hot topic. Great course, great new course. You can see Chris is very much a business and practically oriented person. So you will learn about AI, but it will be also very useful for you if you are in business. So thank you
I
so
hope
much,
so.
and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, guys.